Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Riverside EpiCenter and our latest edition of our now known as Epic Talks Lunch and Learn series. We're going to open up with a word of prayer, and then I'll go over a few things before we introduce our speaker for today, and hopefully you all will enjoy our program, okay? So if we all please just bow our heads. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for this gathering this afternoon. Thank you for everybody that came here to listen and hear and that have open hearts to receive. Dear Lord, we just thank you so much for our guest today, Najee Dorsey, that he's going to deliver some wonderful information, and we just really appreciate everybody, all the hearers and doers of his word. So we just thank you, Lord, for all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, y'all. So good afternoon, and once again, welcome here to the Riverside EpiCenter. My name is Corey Webb. I serve here as the Community Engagement and Entertainment Manager here at the Riverside EpiCenter. This is a part of the series of things that we do here at the EpiCenter, our internal program that we offer for the community, for folks such as you all to be able to come here and get some really good information, and this is one of the ways that for us as a mission-based business, how we serve the community. One of the things and initiatives that we wanted to do this year was to bring some culture over here to the west side, right here in the brand new city of Mableton. So we really appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time out of your afternoon to be able to come here and join us for this program here today. As we go, I want to talk about our guest, and his name is Mr. Najee Dorsey. Najee is amazing. He has an organization called Black Art in America. If you've never heard of it, please make sure you go on all of your social medias, LinkedIn, everything. I mean, Black Art in America is the premier social media conglomerate that is all black art. And of course, he has a wonderful and amazing gallery right over in East Point that is amazing. So let me tell you a little bit about our good friend Najee. Najee Dorsey is a visionary gallerist, art fair producer, advisor, and artist specializing in African American art. He is the founder of Black Art in America, or BAIA, a leading arts organization dedicated to documenting, preserving, and advancing black visual culture. Under his 15 years of leadership, Black Art in America has grown from an online platform into a nationally recognized contemporary art gallery, named one of Atlanta's top art destinations by Atlantic Magazine, honored by the American Art Awards as Best Gallery in Georgia among the 20 best galleries in the USA in 2023. A trusted curator, advisor, Dorsey has produced exhibitions for Fortune 500 companies and major cultural institutions nationwide. He is also a museum collected artist whose mixed media and digital collages explore African American history, Southern life, and cultural memory. He lives in Atlanta with his wife for over 30 years, Cetaria. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Najee Dorsey. I feel really good about that. I did that without my glasses. That's pretty cool. So I'm gonna throw this phone down here real quick. Got my little piece of paper here. Oh, let's turn you on. Yep, that's it.
That's it. How's everybody doing?
Oh man, this is so awesome. So Brother Najee, thank you so much for taking the time out. And just everybody, we have an exhibit back here as well that Najee has put here that is gonna live here at the Riverside EpiCenter for a particular period of time. So that way everyone can be able to enjoy some of this amazing black art that we have, because it's just so important that we tell our stories, right? Here at the Riverside EpiCenter, we have begun our storytelling platform so that way folks can learn and know and understand who we are culturally, particularly over here on the west side of Atlanta in the brand new city of Mableton. And it's just beautiful to see all of you out here today. So let's begin. Najee, tell us a little bit more about yourself and who you are and what you do. Hopefully you can do a better job than I did with just reading it.
No, you did great. First of all, I want to thank you, Corey, and the Riverside EpiCenter for being such an integral part of my life. I recently joined several months back, and have utilized the facility. So if y'all not members, I'm sure y'all are. Be sure to get a membership. And I got to thank my man Rico Brooks, who introduced me to the family and community here. So, but I'm an artist. I'm 53 years old, born in a small town in Arkansas, and did art since the age of 5. I tell people all the time, my mom was my first patron. You know, she would give me a quarter or a nickel to go and buy some candy. I didn't even know you can make a living at this, or what kind of future could exist. And, you know, thankfully through sticking with it and having a sense of just kind of do for self, because we didn't have any galleries. My wife Satiri and I, we opened up a small space in our hometown in Blytheville. It was right next to Etna's Beauty Salon. That was our first gallery. It was a 200 square foot space where we could showcase my work and my friends' work, and it just kind of blossomed from there. And in 2005, we decided to move to Atlanta to pursue my art full time. I'm an art school dropout, so you know, I'm just one of those guys that figure out a way to make a way out of no way, which is the story for many of us, if you know what I mean, right? So that's how we got here.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's great. So understanding that story, right, what do you believe or what do you see as the gaps that needed to be filled that led you to creating Black art in America?
Really, it was about building community. When I first moved to Atlanta, we spent the first 5 years traveling around the states, Chicago, New York, New Orleans, and really just being a working artist myself, and met a lot of other artists that wasn't getting the exposure. You know, we always talk about the usual suspects, are typically the ones that's usually talked about. And so around a dinner table of collectors and artists, we were just talking about the challenges that face many of us. Like, you know, are there more collectors out there? How do we connect with communities? You know, which artists are getting all the shine? And so that's when I had that bright idea. They call that the Obama moment, where you be the change agent that you're looking for. And so, you know, I graduated from high school in the Curve in English. So what I'm doing, having a publishing company, but, you know, through help with supporting other people, you know, I saw a need, I saw a gap, and just kind of went forward with it. Early on, I got a lot of criticism because I didn't have the equipment. You know, like we look around right now, and y'all got the real deal. Like, these are real professionals. My thing is, I was just trying to capture the moment, and for me, it was more important. The most important thing was to capture what was happening around me than to wait till I had everything that was going to be perfect. And I think that's one of the things that we all, you know, many of us can really understand that lane. So that's really was just filling the void, Corey. And it took off like wildfire. We became a huge presence. Right now we have over 160,000 followers on social. We have a huge community of people. But it started as an online platform, just kind of educating people about art, celebrating the artists, celebrating the collectors, and just kind of celebrating the industry.
So you kind of touched on it, right? But what were some of your real challenges initially in the beginning in getting this thing going? And then I want us to, you know, be able to get, you know, of course, dive into the art and what you have here and how folks can really start getting into collecting. But in starting Black Art in America, let's start there. What was those challenges? Because I understand, you know, you just touted some really great numbers of having, you know, more than 160,000 followers. That's really, truly building community. And we have a wonderful audience here today that obviously, you know, that are a part of that community. Tell me about, you know, what got you here.
Yeah. So when we started, we would change out the site every 2-3 times a week. You know, the biggest challenge was really trying to figure out how to maintain and sustain as a company. Forgive me. We never had the support in terms of like any kind of corporate support. So to grow the company, what we ended up doing was starting to produce our own events, art events and experiences around the country. Our first show was in New York at the Audubon Ballroom. So how do we make it sustainable was really the biggest challenge. Because anything, you could put your time and energy into it, but if you're not able to keep it going and make it work, then that was the biggest challenge.
So let's dig into that a little bit, because, you know, I'm sure all of us, you know, if you've been in Atlanta long enough, you remember the National Black Arts Festival and all the big arts festival that happens all over the country, the Dogwood Festival and things like that, where people have their art and things like that. So was it like just going from shows to shows, selling your work, other people's work? Yeah. Like, kind of sort of tell us the business of art a little bit, because we know, you know, folks will go and see something that they like and go buy it, hang it on the wall, but What do we do?
So it started out with me just being an artist. When I first moved here to Atlanta, my first show was at Underground Atlanta, and I didn't have any experience, and so you get the booth, you had to pay for the booth, you had to pay to get your things framed up, and then you just sit there all weekend and just waiting to find somebody that's going to connect with your material. Many artists, we all step out here on faith. We have no idea, like there's nothing that's guaranteed in this industry. And so my first show at Underground, we did 2,500, which to me, from a small town, that was a good amount of money. It let me know that it was a real thing. Thankfully, I met a number of artists that shared with me like some of the other shows that you can go to. Florida was a big market. New Orleans, Chicago was a big market. So it's really a matter of just finding the audience. And that was it as an artist. So being an artist was a little different than building Baya. Being an artist was the first 5 years of my journey.
Okay.
Yeah. In 2010, that's when we sat around the dinner table and saw the opportunity. And building Black Art in America was a little different. I had a little wind under my wings. I had 5 years in of being a working and living artist and building relationships and having collectors around the country that was supporting what I was doing. And so in 2010, when we started Black Art in America, it was initially just to kind of get the word out, just to kind of build community. It was never really about, I had no ideas that you can make it wasn't a business model.
Sure.
It was a passion project. It took me 2.5 years to really figure out the model for Black Art in America. And it just finally dawned on me, the model is basically, I'm around artists all the time. They need support. They need people to support that work, support that journey. And I was meeting so many talented artists that I'm like, well, the collectors that was buying my work, well, they, let me introduce that work to them. And so that's how I became a dealer. It wasn't just trying to, be someone that's selling art. It was really just kind of fulfilling the need and finding a gap.
So that gets us to the meat and potatoes of it then a little bit. So you start out entrepreneurially as an artist yourself.
Yep.
And selling your wares, and then you start to discover that there was a need for building community and building awareness for other artists and to build coalition, if you will, for artists in America, particularly for Black artists in America. How do we get from that to you now have a gallery over in East Point? How does that, and you started talking about collectors. So let's talk a little bit about that world. How does the regular person who's not an artist, but who likes it and enjoys art, start to get into art? Where is that bridge built between the artist, the gallerist, and the consumer of art?
Well, it's built initially like at the National Black Art Festival. It was built in spaces like UGA or other galleries or just the weekend festivals. That's how many of us come to art. I would say 80 to 85% of the people are just buying what they like, which is, what we all say, buy what you like. And there's about 10% of people who are really just, looking at art as speculative, as market-driven, collecting the names of trophy artists and hoping for some type of monetary return. Thankfully, the majority of people are just interested in finding something that they can connect with. And that works out best for the everyday artist because they don't, you don't have those constraints. Well, what's your CV? What residencies have you been in? What museum shows have you gotten into? And that's, and so that's the beauty about art. I found that at every stage of my development and many other artists' development, there's always been support. Whether I was at that coffee house in Long Branch in Carbondale, Illinois, my first show selling things for $100 or $500 to what my work currently sells for now, there's always a level of support along the way. So people come to art in many different ways. We have the gallery. We produce art fairs and experiences. We do pop-up shows like what we're doing here for community outreach. We've done the outdoor festivals, up in Chicago, up in, in New Orleans, so on and so forth. So people access art in many different ways. I bought art from thrift stores. I don't know, yard sales. Just, I bought, there's no one way to find something that you can connect with. The gallery just happens to be a vetting system for, certain artists, and we're working to kind of move the needle for those artists within the marketplace.
So that opens up a whole nother set of questions for me now. Okay. I think I'm gonna deviate from my list a little bit. Yeah. When you said the gallery opens up opportunities, so explain to us a little bit how galleries, museums, like how that becomes a thing, because you mentioned, folks, who as collectors who want to collect and gather all of those famous names as investment, but you said it's also all about people look for something that they can connect to, right?
Right.
So the everyday person connecting with the everyday person, it sounds like. What is the throughput or that line for people, as collectors, but also on the business side of it, for communicating art? Art as collection, but then also art as commerce.
Got you. Well, so we carry a broad range of work from emerging, mid-career, and legacy artists. Your emerging artists are going to be the ones that you're really just kind of getting started, been at it for a number of years, and mid-careers will be like someone like myself that's 20 years in the game or so. Your legacy artists are going to be the names that came before. Now, as a gallerist, we have a number of different artists that we work with. Some we work with closely that are like what we call artists that are exclusively represented through the gallery. And for the general artists, we have a marketplace. You go to blackartinamerica.com, you can find works from $200 on up. These are artists that we believe in, that the work is, still very, very much accessible. But we take an artist like a Tracy Mims. Tracy is an artist that we're really excited about. We have her on exclusive. We've been working with her for 3 years. And what we do for that kind of artist that we really think that the market needs to know, we give them solo shows at the gallery. We take them to all the art fairs that we do. We get scholarship around their work, so we put them in publications. We reach out to curators. We've gifted works to different museums, get them in non-commercial shows. And so there's a system, there's infrastructure that's put in place for artists that we're really working to move the needle with. And that's one of the things that we do. So Black Art in America is its own ecosystem. Like, we've had museums that we've curated shows for, or we advertise for different auction houses or various institutions, that's looking to take advantage of our ecosystem. But yeah, so we're working to drive the market value of work. So with Tracy and other artists that we work with, year one, Tracy's work was generally retailing for, $500 to $1,000. Tracy won the Printmakers Biennial, and that's a very, very prestigious printmaking exhibition that's here in Atlanta, where it's international competition. So we've been able to place our work at like EJI, the Legacy Museum, Sheila Johnson, Coca-Cola has our work in the collection. So there's a lot of things that we've done to really kind of move the needle. So the money side of art is different from just loving it, Corey. You don't have to, you don't have to spend a lot of money to find some really great art. But the question is, like, when you look to sell that work down the line, what are the things that have built the artist's career where people feel like, acquiring that work on the secondary market?
That it's valuable.
Yeah, that it's value. How do you build value is the thing.
Got it.
And that comes from the various things that I just mentioned.
So some things are intrinsic and others are actual value based, right? So it sounds like to me, if I understood you correctly, that Black Art in America is a resource for artists, because you said you get folks into museums, you curate shows, you do those things to help an artist that you believe in. That could be the Henry Oswald Tanner one day, or the Basquiat or somebody, right?
Marshall,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Those kinds of folks. But then also to introduce that to the consumer, and for them to be able to see and know what's out there, right? Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, people go to where the energy is, right? And I mean, just think about anything that you find that has value, whether it's a luxury good or so on. There's a machine behind it that moves the needle for it. And that's the thing that, any gallery is doing, any successful gallery is doing for any artist. Any of the most successful artists, they're working with galleries that have the infrastructure in place that's going to help move the needle, create opportunities for them, whether it's museum shows, residencies, being in art fairs, and in the news. The more you hear about a thing, the more you're going to gravitate to it and just be inquisitive about it. The more you see it, the more accolades you get, then it's going to stand the chance that it's going to be something that you're going to take a serious look at. So that's the role of what we do as a gallerist.
Gotcha. So with that being said, what would you say would be the things that a first-time art collector would need to understand if they're interested in getting into collecting art?
I the first thing I would say is you understand your why. Not everybody's collecting for the same reason. As I mentioned, the general population, 85% of people just buying what they like. Like if you go to a gallery, the gallery's kind of vetted that number down to artists that they believe in, that have a their own unique approach, signature style, a level of commitment to their craft, and they've been at it for a while. So it's not a free for all typically. And so that's a good starting place, but that's not the only place to start. Sometimes you just have to allow for serendipity, because if you're not necessarily concerned about whether or not there's going to be a monetary return at the end, then you just buy what you like. But you can get to spending some serious money on something that may be a derivative work, that may not be somebody's own unique individual ideal or concept, and they may be just a weekend warrior. I've seen it all the time where you could spend $2,000, $3,000, or $5,000 on an artist, or even more. I mean, there's a Kojo. There's an artist by the name of Kojo who was really hot here in Atlanta at one time, and he changed his style, and his market just completely plummeted. So, and I've got collectors that wants me to sell, a significant size work of his, but the market has shifted. So there's a lot of different factors that goes into the money side of art, and many of those factors you can't control. Is really controlled by the players and putting the artists in a space where people feel confident enough to spend a significant amount of money, and so, yeah.
So like somebody buying that first edition of a book, or a classic car, or first print of a rare record or something, being a collector of things, they all have their value as it pertains to what it means to that person.
And that in itself, in and of itself, could be enough for you. I know it is for me. Like, there's a lot of times, Satiri, my wife and I, we're out just taking in art and taking in experience. We have no idea whether or not this guy's going to end up being something over time. I mean, there's certain factors that when we take on an artist as a gallerist, and certain artists that we believe in, there's certain telltale signs in their work or in their trajectory of where they're placing themselves in the marketplace that can lean toward something down the line. But oftentimes, there are no guarantees. But also, like Basquiat, I mean, he was selling his drawings for a couple $100 back in the day. If you were fortunate enough to see the vision, or you just happen to like it, I mean, these are pieces that are selling for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars now.
Right.
So sometimes life just happens for an artist.
I was just about to ask that question, right? You kind of answered it already. Since you brought up Basquiat, some of us, I'm a child of hip hop, of that generation, and for those of us who know who he is, to me, he is Samo, right? That was his tag. He is the guy who invented graffiti art, right? How does that? And then you said he was selling pieces, for a couple of $100. How does that transition happen for an artist in the world on their way to becoming a household name, like the way everybody knows Beyonce today? Yeah. Who would you say is that of the art world today, particularly in black art?
Yeah, well, I mean, a name that everyone should know, I would say, would be Kerry James Marshall. He's probably he would be at the creme de la creme of African American art right now. Basquiat has work sell for $110 million. Kerry James Marshall's had work sell for up to $22 million at auction. It originally was a commission piece for like the Port Authority in Chicago that sold for it was a $25,000 commission that later sold for $22 million. But I can give you an example of someone that went to school here. I mean, you take a look at an Amy Sherrill. The market has really shifted, over the last 15 years for African American art, right? Amy, in 2015, Amy Sherrill's paintings were going, just a decent size, 3 feet by 5 feet, were selling between $8,000 to $9,000. She had trouble selling them at the time. You fast forward 2 years after that, and she ends up winning the National Portrait Award. And her piece, she gets picked up by a significant gallery in Chicago, and her work starts to sell between 30 to 50. Within another year, she ends up getting the Michelle Obama portrait commission, right? And then later that year in Miami Art Basel, the work was selling for 190-something thousand. Now her work sells for millions of dollars. Like, she has auction records for $3 to $4 million. And so the market can shift, and it doesn't have to shift that dramatically. I mean, I could think about like Alfred Conte, who's an artist here in Atlanta. When we first moved to Atlanta, I mean, Alfred's work was only, you can get a significant piece for about 5,000. Now he's had work to sell for $80,000. Even my work, when I first moved to Atlanta, my most expensive piece was 2,500. Last year, my gallerist Keith Golden had a piece sell for 60,000. So the market has shifted over time. And I've got one of the artists that we work with in the back, Chanel Clark. Chanel, raise your hand. Yeah, so this is an emerging artist we really believe in. We're publishing a limited edition of his work. We've shown his work in a number of shows and also at the gallery. We have our collection, Sateria. Now we're very active collectors in supporting art. So we have our show in Columbus right now. Chanel has one of the pieces that's in the show. I brought a couple catalogs. Maybe we might ask a random question and see if y'all can answer it, and I give 2 catalogs away to that show. So, but yeah, so there's a ton. Atlanta has has a lot of really talented artists in the city, right? So, and there's a number of great venues where you could take that work in. So, but yeah.
Okay, very cool, very cool. So let's bring it back to your organization in Black Art in America, since we've talked about all these others and Atlanta in particular, and you've just really grown this over a number of years. Where would you say was the tipping point for Black Art in America starting to become an institution in the art world? Because I know you're fresh coming off of your show in Houston that did very, very well. At what point does that churn start to happen for someone in your business?
Man, so, I mean, May will be our 16th year as a company, right? I would say we've had a few tipping points. Many would say we became an institution when we bought our building, right? So we existed primarily as an online platform for the first 12 years. But we would do pop-up shows and experiences in different cities around the country, exhibitions, curated shows, so on and so forth. During COVID, we got one product line that's called Garden Art for the Soul. I don't know if we got any of the Garden Art for the Soul supporters out here.
Oh wow, yeah, you guys need to see that. The Garden Art for the Soul is amazing.
Yeah.
We'll let you plug it and tell people where to go get it and everything. Well, if you want to do it now, because I love those things.
Yes. So these are these contour cut pieces that are designed for people to just bring art and culture into their yard, and they sell between $45 and $79, but just an everyday product, right? So I had been praying for something that I could just that we can have ownership of. That would be something for just the masses, because I think in this art world, it's just gotten to be too much about, trophy artists and collecting as opposed to just really embracing our culture, And what I mean by that is like even the jewelry, that I'm wearing. This is the work by an artist, pillows and lampshades. And like back in the day, I would see a lot of people that would have just the culture immersed in their homes and not just focusing on a few pieces on the wall. So anyway, the first 2 years of the Garden Art for the Soul, we would probably do 30 to 40,000 in sales, which I thought was pretty cool. But when COVID happened, everybody was stuck at home. That year, we did over $300,000 just in this one product alone. And because we went out spending the money, I had to figure out, okay, what would make sense for what's our next move. And so we took those resources and bought the building in East Point, paid cash for it, which is a 4,000 square foot space, 3/4 of an acre. And this is our home base for us to present and do what we do as a company. So many will argue that's really when we became an institution, when we got that brick and mortar space. But we spent the last 16 years building community, building audience, paying writers to write about Black visual culture, being ahead of the curve in so many different ways. In 2012, we had a campaign called Do You Basel as a way for more people to know what's happening in Miami. How many people have heard about Art Basel, the name? So 10, 15 years ago, it would be hardly anybody Black that knew about this whole series of shows that take place. There's over $500 million of art being sold. And so I went down there one year and I didn't see us there. And so we had this huge campaign called Do You Basel as a way to let the community know, say, hey, this is what's taking place. Let's get in and figure out where we fit within the equation. And like now, if you go, it's like a family reunion. There's so many Black folk down there. You think it's a Tom Johnny cruise.
Yeah, it's not just going to to Miami, y'all. You're absolutely right. It
Right.
feels like a family reunion, and even going to to actually the origin in Switzerland is really interesting too. And I'm starting to see more and more of us show up there too. If you don't know, Art Basel is an amazing event. That's international. It happens in Miami in the States, I believe in Hong Kong,
Oh yeah, yeah.
in Switzerland, and a couple other places around the globe that where you can really get into the international art community and the art scene to really see what's out there. Just like you said, because you just don't know what might speak to you or how you may want to
Yeah.
begin to get into those things. So that's really cool to learn. Oh, and by the way, now you go buy his product. You don't have to put those little silly little garden gnomes, next to your plants and everything. Now he has some really beautiful and amazing pieces that can dress up your garden and your front yard that are really awesome. And I plan to buy some too because I like birdhouses in my yard and trees and everything, and I think that'll be great now.
Yeah, and we actually have some on the Beltline across from Jimmy Carter Center. We've actually curated the Freedom Park Sculpture Garden for the last 2 years for the city of Atlanta, which is one of the ones that one of the institutions that we partner with to do product.
Sure, that's awesome. So, knowing that and understanding that, because, we were just talking earlier before we came on stage here about how unique Atlanta is, right, when it comes to culture and blackness and those things for us here. Why would you say that art is such an urgent thing and so important to our culture right now, visual art and those things today?
I know it's added a lot of quality to my life. We live with art, we support the artists, we get out to the shows. There's a lot going on in the world, and anytime you can just kind of break away and tap in and connect with something that can give you great positive energy, feed your soul, feed your intellect. That's what art can do. Even you may not be a collector right now. Hopefully we can change that and be a part of the equation. But just get out and just experience art. And it's really the art is the biggest component, but really it's about community. If you just allow yourself to tap in, not only will you connect with the art, you're going to connect with other people who are like-minded, who are looking for something wonderful in their life. But I found art to be transformative. Like I chopped cotton at the age of 12. We didn't have no art in my home, but I've toured the country. We've had tremendous impact. I'm an artist. I met people who have supported my craft. I've helped other people get started with collecting. Like we started a print fair, while we produced a number of art events and experiences. But another tipping point would be the print fair that we started 4 years ago now. Like I've seen how the market has really shifted. Jay-Z and Swiss Beats and a lot of people talking about collecting art and living with art and how art can grow from a monetary standpoint. But you go to the average gallery, a lot of times it could be unobtainable for a lot of people. They feel like it's unattainable. When you go somewhere and they talking 5, 10, 15, 30, $100,000 for something, right? And so that's why I started the print fair. I wanted to give people something of real value, something that they can connect with, something that has a long historical record of being a real, tangible art product and an asset. So,
So you don't have to be a rich person to get into art.
No, not at all. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be rich at all. But art, man, I would just say give art a chance. Let it feed your soul. And find a way to connect with it. The beauty is, like, when you think about your home, it's through art you have a chance to curate like that feeling you want every time you come home. You get out of that Atlanta traffic, you go home and pour you a tall glass of water, and sit back.
Or maybe a short glass of something else.
Yeah, a short glass of something else. Sit back and just enjoy. Also, it's going to spark dialogue and conversation, but you have a chance to curate the things that you value. And like if you grew up and you want to connect with Big Mama picking greens, or you might want to connect with, growing up as a kid, those images that speak to you that way. Maybe it's something that's political. There's a lot going on in this world. So we might need some fight the power up in the house. We might need some black love in the house. So there's a endless possibilities of how you can curate your space when you come home through art. And it's also going to help you when you support the artists like that. You're supporting the messaging of our culture. You're supporting the continued legacy of our culture and who we are. and what we're about.
So that's great that you say that, because my next question is, because oftentimes I've heard that if we lose the humanities,
Yeah.
then we're doomed as a nation,
Right.
right? We're in trouble. So, with that being said, what happens, in your opinion, what happens to a culture that does not preserve art, that doesn't see the value in art? I think you just named some of it, but tell me what you think.
Man, I don't know. I think we get away from the best of ourselves when we get away from art. The best of our culture, the better examples of what humanity is for us and our lived experiences. Society would try to dumb us down in a lot of different ways and make us numb for what's going on in the world, and then the various images. The art are the things that can hold that message and hold that power, and then there's energy in that art. Like when we go to the canvas and we create, we pour in all of our soul and intention and historical context of who we are and what we've gone through into these objects. And so if you believe in the vibration of just life and energy and that we're all connected, that energy is going to be in your home and in your space. And so I think, like right now with them taking, like they're trying to whitewash, our culture, our art is gonna be there to stand the test of time, and just to remind us, and also remind young minds, young impressionable minds, what happens when they grow up and see like beauty reflected on the walls, and the fact that you're embracing culture, you're embracing the higher self of us as a people. It's going to have an impact. And so through your support, that's the part that you play as someone that's supporting the art and that's collecting art. And I want to throw out this misnomer. Like a lot of times, what frustrates me a lot is that people think black folk ain't supporting the art. Man, that is so crazy. Like even everybody probably can't afford to spend thousands of dollars on a painting, but even if you get that knick-knack, you know what I'm saying, that little something that auntie and mama had on or maybe it's a mini print. It may not be a piece of art, but it might be something from an artist that can speak to who you are and what you want to hold dear. And I would just say, just know that if you're really interested in collecting and learning more, you can. We artists and galleries, we all have a payment plan. Ain't nothing better than a good layaway. You know what I'm saying? So
That's right.
Yeah. And the last show that we did, so I got a good friend who was an ambassador for the show we did in Houston, and we did a takeaway, and he told me, and Rudy Ramis, he's in his 70s, and he said, Naj, he said, man, the thing that I'm always remember, I got a lifelong friend that's 75 years old, and he bought his first piece of art at 75. And I think he's gone an entire lifetime without, connecting with something like that. But he made a decision that he wanted to do something different on this go round. So it's never too late and it's never too early is my point.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So with that said, because you mentioned young people, you mentioned the youth, right? So I'm going to ask 2 questions, and then we're going to open it up for if anybody in the audience has questions. My first question is, how could young people find their way and navigate their way into the art world? How did they get into art? Because as you know, a lot of that is being taken away from schools, and access to resources for art seems to be limited these days. So what would you say is a pathway for somebody that's young or older aspiring to get into art?
The beauty is, only thing you need is a piece of paper and a pencil. You don't even need that. Honestly, like if you creative, we can go do a scavenger hunt in the neighborhood, and some things that people have thrown away, like we can make art out of that. The beauty is art can be made from anything, and so introducing the youth to art as often as you can, in as many different forms, is going to have an impact. So you don't have to be limited to resources, honestly. Like
Okay.
just you can make art out of anything, and I think that's the thing we have to encourage people to fully understand is that there's no one way to do this. This is about expression. This is about what you have to pour into something. But the thing is also that you need to keep in mind, particularly for young artists, is that if you don't find a financial support, just because you make a thing don't mean somebody got to buy it either. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reality of it. So, but
Sounds like jazz.
right.
That's what I love about jazz, because it's interpretation, but it's also expression.
Yeah.
And then as with any form of art, it's subjective.
Yep.
It's what you think or feel that it might be, right?
But let me say this though,
Sure.
just to kind of put a little something on that, is that I would say right now is the best time. There's really no better time for someone to really come to art, because you got the example. Like we got so many examples of what you can do through art. I didn't have that growing up. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know a single artist. I didn't meet a single artist really that was black that I can say. I mean, other than my art teacher, she wasn't black, but the first black artist I met, I was already an adult. You know, I'm 19 years old, and Najee became my mentor. He was an undergraduate at Southern Illinois University, and he used to talk to me about, man, this life that we can live through art. He was getting his MFA, and he was going to go on and be a tenured professor, and so he exposed me to the opportunity. And at the time, I was just really enjoying hanging out with him. It was kind of like in one ear and out the other, but something clicked. I tell people all the time, I meet so many young artists, and I be like, man, you're way more talented than I was at your age. I tell them that all the time. And it's like, if you stick with something, stick like nothing, talent is only one element. And a lot of times it's the smallest element. If you got that drive and that passion and that hard head that everybody talked about, you know what I'm saying? That you don't give up and you don't quit when it doesn't go your way.
Yeah, sure.
Because the thing about it is, like, I remember sending, it wasn't even emails at the time. I was writing letters to galleries when I was back home in Arkansas. And I got nothing but rejection letters, but that didn't stop me. It's like, okay, there's no space for me in a spot. I got to create my own. And I think that's the thing that we really have to encourage people to do is like, you have to be your own best ambassador. You might have to create the opportunity that you're looking for yourself and for your friends and for your community. And we can't be afraid to be someone who, don't get confined to these boxes that people try to put you in. That's the thing. That's the thing with me. I'm never going to be confined to how you view me, because I know I've got capacity to do way more than what the average bear is.
Oh, wow. So that means you're not done. So with that, what does legacy mean to you? Over 20 years in the game, and you've helped and you've developed and you've built yourself. I hear oftentimes, I've heard Bishop Bronner say, in order for black people to believe that they can do it, they got to see it. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you? What is building something? Because, we always want to be able to have something that's left after we're gone. What does legacy mean to you?
That I completely agree about, the example of seeing something. My perspective has actually changed on this. There was a time when legacy was really important. I was trying to put some people in place that, could be like the next generation to move the needle and kind of keep my name out there. I'm to the point now where I'm just going to try to enjoy this moment, make the impact that I can make right now. I can't control whether or not somebody's going to write about me 10, 50 years from now. I know one thing, we put a lot of work in. If you Google Black art in America, if you Google Najee, it might be difficult to be erased, but I can't be concerned with that. What I'm concerned with right now is my health. And trying to buy back more time for me to get back in the studio, to buy back more time for my wife to not be burdened so heavily with the administrative side of cutting checks and everything that it takes to do this work. What we do, I mean, it's work. People, you wouldn't want to run this race, if you ain't committed. I'm telling you, like it's work to do everything that we do at the level in which we operate. And through God, we make it look easy. People think it is easy because we make it look easy. But man, this ain't for the faint of heart. You got to be a real soldier to do this. What we do, yeah.
Oh, wow. So listen, everybody, we're running up on our time, so I want to be able to make sure that I can make the floor available for questions. And I know this conversation is really interesting, and I'm sure everybody else thinks so too. So be on the lookout real soon. We're going to start a brand new podcast here as a part of our Epic Talks series, and it's called Epic Talks Unredacted. It's where we get the chance to double click into this conversation, and you get to see a little bit more, and you get to, Najee can give us some of the other answers or some of the real that he really want to say that we just don't have the time for here today in this setting. So be on the lookout for that. And with that being said, I would love to open the floor to questions if anybody has a question for our guest here today about the art world. And just remember, there's no such thing as a dumb question. It's the one that you don't ask. My man. Yes, sir.
I'm good, bro.
Oh, that is awesome. I love it.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you. Hey, you spoke about sending your art to potential galleries. When you sent your potential introductory letter or your introductory work, what was the format you used? Was it just photographs that you sent to them? How did you send that? How did you get them exposed to what you're trying to introduce them to?
Yeah, so at that time, I actually had a little brochure that I had put together. But as a gallerist, let me share with you what I think the best approach would be as a gallerist and an artist. I wear multiple hats, right? I would argue once you do your due diligence to see if your work is a fit. A lot of times people think the work is a fit, and it may not necessarily be a fit. Every gallerist is not the same. Every space is not meant for everybody. If you decide, if you think that gallery is a fit, I would argue that just being present that may lead to a serendipitous conversation. Support the gallery with your presence. And then when they see you on a regular basis and they, oh man, what do you get into? What do you do, this and that? Then you can let them know about, oh, I'm an artist, this, that, and the third. Oh, I've been curious about what's the protocol, what's the procedure for getting into a space like this. That's going to make the conversation a way easier. Because I can tell you, we get hundreds, if not 1,000 people applying or sending emails to try to be in the space that we're doing. And, we just don't have the capacity to work with everybody. And so there's no one way, but that's one way that I would recommend. Because, or if you don't do that, if you have someone who supports your work that also supports the gallery. Like if I get a collector that say, Naj, I think you really should consider, taking a look at this guy's work, or let's go do a studio visit. I'm gonna get some extra attention because they're supporting my program. They probably have a better sense of what I'm into if they're supporting the gallery. And so there's a number of different things to do. But I would just say these blind emails or these blind calls or just showing up at the door, that's just really not the way to do it. And it's never the time to do it if we're having an exhibit or we're at an art fair, because at that point we're trying to engage the people that, in this short window that we're hoping to sell the work of the artist that we're working with. So that's just something.
Are there any more questions? Oh, right, we have another one over here.
So thank you, Mr. Najee. So my question is, where do you see the direction of black art in Atlanta taking? I know we've seen a big shift in the direction of visual art, structural art. What do you see as the 5 to 10, 20 years from now for black art in America or in Atlanta?
Man, there's a lot of artists out here. We all flock here because of the culture. You know what I'm saying? Community, other artists. We really need to pour more from the city standpoint and from the artist standpoint and the community standpoint to kind of galvanize and kind of build more community, to kind of let people know that collecting is a thing, living with art is a thing, supporting artists is a thing. We have to strengthen the culture for arts more. There's way more artists than people that's buying art. That's just the reality of it. And for us, I would say, again, to the whole legacy piece, I don't know if there will be black art in America 10 years from now. Not that we don't have the infrastructure, not that we couldn't put some things in place if we really put some effort to it. There's going to be a whole new generation. There's going to be a new generation of artists. There's going to be a new generation of collectors. It's you know, it's a cycle. Like, you know, there was my predecessors 10, 20, 30 years ago. You know, now people, you know, now it's a whole new generation. So it's going to continue. It's going to continue through our efforts of supporting the arts and supporting artists. I can't really say what we're going to be 10, 20 years from now, honestly, because I'm not, you know, I got some thoughts, but you know, it's just not. I can't project that far. I mean, really, I'm thinking about like, what would it look like to be semi-retired at this point? I'm telling you, it's a lot of work. I mean, really, if I could do, I mean, I'm always 100. If I could give real talk, we were actually more profitable before we opened up the gallery. Honestly, when we were just an online platform and we did pop-up shows, it's a real expense to have a physical space where you have a designated staff. You got hours, and you know, you got insurance and taxes. Like, people have no idea of the burden it is for small businesses, for any business, right? And so it's a commitment. It's a real commitment to have a space that people can come to, that you can welcome them in. You know, I mean, I think about, Brother Bunny, I can only imagine. Like, I mean, I know what my expenses are running my gallery. Goodness, payroll here, insurance here. I mean, come on, you know. And I'm gonna say this, man. And this is off topic. Like, I ain't gonna put the brother on blast, but there was a brother that I heard him over talking in the steam room one day. He said, "Oh man, I use my wife's membership because, you know." And I'm like, "Bro, how you think they supposed to survive? How black business is supposed to survive if we're gonna cheat them out of what's due?" You know what I mean? Like, we have to. You know what I mean? Come on now. You know, ain't none of us miss no meals. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a firm believer in doing the right thing, because that energy and karma is a real thing. And so, like, we have to support each other and do it the right way. You know what I mean? And so we got it in us. You know, we got it in us. That was just one example, but I'm just saying, like, you know, we can do better. Many of us are doing better. We're here. You know, I'm sure we're not talking to this group, but I'm just saying, like, you know, but that's with everything, man. We can do better at supporting each other and being present for each other. And even if you think you're not in a position to collect, find some artists that you believe in what they're doing. Share their work on social media. Share their work with the people that you know that love art. Bring some friends to a gallery. Bring them to a culture center. You got so many opportunities around here to experience art and engage in art, right? And, you know, call up the museum and say, "Hey, have you seen this artist?" Like, there's a lot you can do to advocate for artists that's beyond just, you know, cutting a check. You know, maybe invite them over for a meal. You know, invite them over and have some friends there to see their artwork. Do the old-fashioned home show. That's how many of us came, you know, did our thing. So, you know, it's at this time, particularly with everything that's going on in this world, we got to pull each other close. You know what I'm saying? And support each other as much as we can, because we already see how they viewing us. You know what I mean? So it's, you know, we are enough. We truly are. And if we can get some extra, we'll take that. But we gonna start at home though.
That's right. All right, we have one more question, and then I have some more information to give to everyone, and then we'll wrap up the show. Okay, one last question from the back of the room.
Hello. A few years ago, I went to Vancouver, and when I went there, I saw Native American art that was everywhere. I feel like literally everywhere. I went to the aquarium, and it was literally built into the structure, or at least part of it. So my question is for you. It's kind of a follow-up question to the gentleman before you. What would your ideal be for, like, black art in Atlanta? If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think there's some things that we need. We need maybe some of the tax dollars to be set aside for arts. You know, back in the day, like in you know, right after World War, I think it was right after World War II, we had the WPA, where the artists were funded through the government to create murals and to do art programs around the country. And that had a huge impact. I think we need more exhibition space. We need more studio space. We need a bigger commitment. I mean, there's so many places that's got blank walls that need to be filled, you know? And so I would say more infrastructure for the arts. Maybe even from a legislative standpoint, one of the things I thought about is, it'd be great if there was tax advantages or tax cuts for artists that are working, particularly artists that are working in communities. Now imagine, one of the things I had pitched to one housing authority one time is that, what if you had some housing set aside in housing authorities where you have artists that come in and they get space, right? But part of their commitment, they get a discounted rent, but part of the commitment is they have to do community engagement in the art with the residents. So I think we need more voices at the table, and I would say, like, as an entrepreneur and artist, I kind of think about things. I'm looking at it a little differently in a sense. So I would say, pull me to the table. If you got some people that's looking to make some commitments or do some things that's different, I think outside of the box. And I think there's some things like that could make a lot of sense for building community and creating space and more affordable housing for artists.
Gotcha. So speaking of pull me to the table, pull me to the side, how can everybody here find out more about Black Art in America? Where's your gallery located? Go ahead and plug all your stuff.
All right. So Black Art in America, 1802 Connolly Drive. We're open Fridays and Saturdays. You can find us on social media. We're particularly strong on Instagram and Facebook. We got some free publications right there. And yeah, and we got an exhibit that's going to be up for a month. My personal page on IG is Najee.Dorsey. So just, we'd love to connect. We'd love to see you in the gallery space, and hopefully you'll be seeing more of us around here.
Hey, Najee, thank you so much, my friend. I really greatly appreciate you, sir. Thank you for coming to spend some time here at the Riverside EpiCenter with us. Thank you to all of you for coming out and spending some time with us here this afternoon, too. This is the beginning. Many of you are already familiar with the Lunch and Learn series that we do here, but now we really are rebranding it, and it is now our Epic Talks series. And we're going to do a whole lot more, so make sure you be on the lookout, in our email, our newsletter, the text messages, all of our socials, the website, because we're also going to do one of those TED Talk style events as well, where we really get to do it a little bit larger for the community, where we can have some more speakers. We'll do that twice a year, and just like I told you before, we'll also have our podcast that'll be starting soon as a part of our storytelling platform here at the Riverside EpiCenter. And with that said, before I let you go, Najee told you all about himself, so I can't forget to tell you about everything that we do here at the Riverside EpiCenter also. This evening, this Friday, today, for those of you who feel like getting your dance on, this evening we have Dance Flow Fridays. It starts at 6 o'clock this evening right here in this space in our main mall area. So if you want to come dance, I see the two of you out here together, you want to come and cut a rug, certainly come and do that. As well, coming up on March 7th, we have our hip-hop and R&B cardio dance class coming up with Magic 107.5, 97.5's Jackie Page. We do that here once a month here, which is really, really great. That's actually how we found Najee. He's a member of our fitness club here. So we really are community-driven here, and we really want to make sure that we get everybody involved here, right? And then, of course, you can't forget our 55-plus retired professionals mixer that's coming up on Tuesday, March 17th. That's St. Patrick's Day. And St. Patrick's Day, we're going to have a whole lot of other things going on here as well. So please make sure you stay tuned. Please get in tune to sign up for our email newsletter, get on all of our socials, our Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the things. And we just really, really appreciate everybody for all of their time here today. And I actually wrapped this thing up on time today, which is really, really awesome. So thank you once again so much. I really appreciate our general manager, Dr. Christopher Boyd, and on behalf of our bishop, our pastor over across the street at Word of Faith Family Worship Cathedral, who owns the Riverside EpiCenter, who built this place with his vision for the community, for the youth, for us to be able to do things like this as a mission-based business. We really, really appreciate you all. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon, and God bless. We'll see you later this afternoon for Dance Flow Fridays.